Would you farm?
It was grain,
Grain?
Green.
barley and wheat, notes.
Today they send the combine through and they're done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I kinda like this little magazine, I hang on to it because it's just full of memories.
Do you all know how to drive? Jackie?
Dad wouldn't let the girls drive.
Oh, really?
We didn't have a car till 1940. Yeah, 1936 or 40, somewhere around there. But the boys got to drive.
Do you know how to drive now?
Oh my, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Backseat driving, you can't be.
Yeah. I do that all the time. I do that all. We have to take care of the chickens too.
I was gonna ask you, did you have livestock growing up? Other
We had-
livestock?
We had rabbits, white rabbits,
Oh.
and that was our meat,
Okay.
and chickens, so we could have eggs. And the cows, so we could have cream and butter. Made our own butter. You know, you squish, squish, squish the old cream, you know, until it turned to butter. Mm-hmm.
Did you have a,
A stomper.
oh, okay.
But then toward the end, you had to work it so you get all the way out. So,
A lot different than it is today for us.
good store by town.
Yeah.
And then when we girls had to go with the thrashing crew and help the farmer's wife, and we'd go out and kill the chickens, have them on the table, fried, ready to go by noon.
How'd you kill them?
Chop their heads off.
Oh, God. So did you have to catch them and then lay them down?
With a wire on their leg, and catch them, and usually my brother or somebody, the men would chop the heads off first. Then you had a big boiling broiler full of hot water, you dip them in and scald them. Then you gotta pull the feathers off. That's the only way you could get your feathers off. Yeah. And then you had a couple tanks sitting there with cold water, washed them, cut them up on the next end and put them in the frying pan. And the ladies always had the big pies. The men expected pies. Usually a crew about 20 to cook for.
And then you'd have to take lunch out to
Oh, yeah.
them mid-morning and in the afternoon
But my dad had 2 thrash machines going, so we girls were always farmed out to help the ladies.
What was your favorite meal that you
Fried
remember
chicken.
fried chicken?
Chicken. I was gonna ask that question.
Fried chicken.
It's still our meal. We go to church, and as soon as we get out of church, we live so far home, we'll stop at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Is it the same as, did it taste better before?
Well, it tastes good because I'm not cooking.
There you go.
I just want to leave this thought with you. I read it to the others. You may glean knowledge by reading, but you must separate the chaff from the wheat by thinking. If you know what chaff is, it's on the wheat. But you gotta separate it and think.
I dressed these for the Safeway store. There were no inspections, nothing. Nobody asked you any questions. You just, now that, we have a farmer's market, and for a long time I took my raspberry jam there, and then I made cinnamon bread. Well, now you have to have a licensed kitchen or you're out. And boy, every session, there was Wednesday afternoon and Saturday morning, and the inspector came and just went right around it to every vendor that was there. Boy, their name was always put in the paper too, who they got. So that all ended, that,
Yeah, we always had to kill a couple pigs and at least one steer of some kind. Then the men would go hunting, we'd have deer.
Would you smoke your pigs or how would you?
More or less, how did we do the pigs? I can't remember. We didn't have a freezer.
Because
Yeah.
I've saw it done in a pit before
But-
and they smoke it.
Put them in a crock with lard all around them,
Because that sealed it.
and seal it and let it.
Yeah, you run it up with a pulley and drop it down into the hot water.
Mhm.
so you could scrape all its hide. Yeah.
Oh, I hated those days.
Oh, those were hard days too. But you had to have some food, you, was no store, no
At
money to buy anything.
the farm now, after we bought the farm, we've got a cooler out there and a meat saw, and I built the meat saw, and the people that come out from Denver to bought ground around, they'd all come up and we'd butcher for them. We was able to butcher, cut up 1,100 pounds of meat in probably 3 hours.
Wow.
Wow.
What did you, I heard you mention Denver just now. What did you think of Denver when you were growing up? Did you go to Denver a lot?
Very few times I went, my folks went. Yeah.
And was it a special event when you go to Denver, or was it just to
Usually
get things? Or?
relatives, some illness or something that we'd have to go and tend to. But just for pleasure, we never went. Did I tell you about the big boxes of things Mom bought at the Goodwill store? One big box would be shoes, one big box would be trousers, and next box would be dresses. Take them home, and you pick out what fit you. That was your
So if you could travel anywhere in the world, just get on a plane and go for a couple days, where would you go?
He'd probably go to Australia. He's been on a lot of places.
I sure wouldn't go to England or France or Italy.
Where would you go, Myra?
Where?
I
Where
never
would you
got
go if you
into
could travel?
Germany, so I don't know.
Switzerland.
Switzerland.
That's a good place. So have you ever been to the beach or to an ocean?
In Oregon, we were real close to the beach, and we went real often. And then we went back several years ago, later, and the first thing I do is grab my camera, and it was a real stormy day, and I run out there, and here comes a guard. But that was during World War II,
Oh, okay.
and that was the end of that.
I was next to the Atlantic Ocean, out in Connecticut. There's young people's camp there, right on the ocean front. That's the closest I ever got to it. Of course, he loved the oceans.
Were all of your parents born in the United States?
Mine weren't.
Can you,
My dad, my mother was, but not my dad.
where was your dad born?
In Germany. And my mother, let's see, no, my dad's mother graduated from the Berlin University from there, see. They were all, both sides were very educated and went on. But then when my mom went to college here at Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and one of my children, I don't know, it was about 4th, 5th grade, and they were talking, and she said, you know more with your words and everything than we did when we went to college. She couldn't get over what we're all learning now, you know, and so.
Wow. Interesting. And where were your parents from?
My parents were born, let's see, Dad was born in West Virginia. Mom was born in Colorado, same house, but her parents came over from Odessa, Russia. And they offered Germans land in Russia, but then when the wars came and everything, they wanted to take your young men into the armies. Our people didn't like that, and his didn't either, so they got on a ship and came to America.
Well, my dad was born in Odessa, Russia. His brother was born in Germany, but they moved to Russia on account of Queen and so that offered them ground and.
What was that called? Queens? Or
You know what?
What did
The
you call
queen
it?
in charge.
Oh.
His dad came over when he was 4 years old in 1893.
And my mom, she was born in Pennsylvania.
we've reached the end
Uh-oh.
of the session. Thank you very much. It was a great adventure. Thank you all so very much. One of the things I wanted to point out about this is that as part of the compilation on the DVD, we will add pictures and we will add a complete copy of this of the diary that will be on your DVD. Okay, and so again, what we're going to ask you to do is to transcribe. Once you get the copy of the DVD, a couple of weeks, you'll get a copy of today. And we want you to transcribe the conversation here today. Okay, and then, as I say, our final product is to be delivered to the Fort Collins Museum and the Greeley Museum and the State Oral History Archive. So this all becomes part of that. That's why we're making this contribution to those places. Okay, so if you would just give us your name and then tell us about your research. Sorry, I gotta start over.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah.
My name is Adriana Casillas, and I've read the Greeley history, and I also researched Rattlesnake Kate. And so when I asked them about Rattlesnake Kate, I thought it was interesting because growing up in Greeley, I've always heard about the legend of Rattlesnake Kate, but it was neat to have to hear the experience of people of Floyd and Myra and Betty who have heard firsthand stories about Rattlesnake Kate. So it seemed more of a reality than the legend of Rattlesnake Kate. And then also another thing I thought was interesting. I've done a lot of research on the Spanish colony in North Greeley, and that's where a lot of the Mexican families live. And I just thought it was interesting to hear Myra's experience with the Spanish families and how they were devoted and they didn't have to be told what to do, and I just thought that was interesting. And if I had the chance, I would like to ask more about their encounters with the Mexican culture, the Spanish culture. And also, another thing I thought was interesting was when Floyd and Betty talked about Russian immigrant relatives. I am a fourth Russian, and I have Russian heritage, and so I thought that was interesting, and I can relate to hearing stories about their relatives leaving Russia on account of German occupancy and issues. So I thought that was interesting that we had that tie. And also we seemed so concerned about political history, and it was really interesting to me how I think disconnected the informants seemed with politics back then, and I think that would be interesting to know why that is more, just because I don't know if it's because they're farming and I don't know, but I thought that was really interesting. And it was a very humbling experience to interview the informants and Myra and Floyd and Betty, just because it made me appreciate how easy we have things today, and we can go and buy, bread mix for like $3, and they had to make all of their ingredients to make bread and butter, and it's almost sad because we've almost lost the culture that Americans tend to boast about. So I'd just like to thank you and all of you for the experience. So thank you.
Thank you, very good. You are?
I'm Sienna Crossland, and I'm so grateful that I actually had this experience. At first, I didn't really know how it would go. I didn't know if it would be awkward or, a difficult thing to do, but these three have made it just a wonderful experience. And one of the things I want to talk about is schooling. Just listening to their stories about school and just one room with one teacher and a potbelly stove. It makes me really appreciate the fact that, you know, now we are here at CSU and we have hundreds of classrooms, and it makes me appreciate my education. And in fact, things like that have enabled us to do this with you now. And it's great. Another thing I wanted to talk about was a little bit of what Adriana said about their stories of how only once in a while people would come to their door and you could buy things from these peddlers. But now we do have Walmart, we have grocery stores, and it's so easy. And to hear their firsthand experiences does make me appreciate the ease that we have it today, but also it makes me look at people who are still producing, the farmers who are still producing, and you know, the work they're putting in for us. And that, you know, Floyd's story made me appreciate that, Betty's, and you know, these are things that college students don't think about too often until you actually sit in a room and interview, and you know, makes you a little more grateful for what we have. Other than that, I had a great time. I'm really excited, so thank you.
People are teachers around me, it's horrible. I was telling the teacher, they're all brats. And I said, now you tell the class what you told me, that you are all just so polite.
Oh, we're so glad to have you here. So come back and visit. And thank you so much. It was great to meet you and talk to you guys. Thank you. Oh, I'm excited to send them the copies of this thing.
Very good.
I enjoyed this experience a lot. It was very informative. I've never experienced anything quite like this, so it was great. Of all the things I learned, I've done a lot of research online about the area and how living conditions were back then, and they had a lot of stuff about how harsh it was with the winters and all the chores and stuff growing up, but on paper and reading it online doesn't really give you the full value of what these people had to do growing up and all the chores they had to do and the winter and stuff like that. So that made me pretty appreciative of how it is now. Also, the way the land is, I read about online, how it's shrinking and all the houses are going up, and I heard their point of view on that, and that made me think about it a lot too, just all the housing developments. And then I was also interested to hear about how, I always thought when you lived on a farm, if you needed things, you had to go into town. I didn't know there was traveling salesmen and all this that came door to door, and that was really interesting to me. I learned a lot from that. And I guess I'll just finish on, my mom has a farm now, and she doesn't, it's a ranch, she doesn't do anything like that, but I occasionally move hay for her, and it's a lot of work and hard work, and I do it once a month, and I always complain about it, but I feel like now I can't complain anymore because it's like, it doesn't compare. I feel like I'm spoiled, so it really makes me have a lot of respect for what you people went through when you were younger, so.
Very good, thank you. And next?
Okay. Hi, I'm Adam Ruth again, and I also wanted to say I had a great experience today interviewing you folks. And I was interested, I personally have I have a grandfather and 2 uncles that were pilots in various wars, and I was interested that so many of their siblings and relatives were in the service, and I was not aware that, I assumed that it affected the farming and the farming community, but I didn't know how greatly, like, all 3 brothers, 5 brothers went off and things like that, and how much that could have devastated a farming community. And I also was surprised about food preparation. I was also not aware that everything was done in-house, where you didn't just go to the town and get more food and things like that. You made it all yourself and grew the chickens and all that. And the last thing that I want to touch on is entertainment. Like, I've personally grown up and I've always had entertainment, like video games and going to movies and stuff, and that's just something I've grown up on. And I was surprised that there was really almost next to none of that. It was all playing with friends and mostly working, and that was just something that surprised me. But it was a great experience, and thank you.
Alright, that's fine.
I'm Bianca Garcia, and I did a lot of research on Will County. Being from Arizona, there's not too much farming out there, and I'm from a big city, I'm from Phoenix, and there's like no farming where I come from. I'm a big city girl, and so I got to learn more about Colorado and the farming here, and because I didn't really know much, like, I don't know much about Colorado, I'll be honest with you. And like my family, my grandparents were, worked in the mines and stuff like that, so they've always talked about, you know, working in the mines and not really working out in the fields and stuff like that. And there's no mining in Arizona hardly ever, like, anymore. So I never really learned about farming. So it was really interesting to hear all your stories about, you know, getting up early and like going and plowing and all that stuff. That's just beyond my like reasoning. But also the Rattlesnake Kate, I did some research on that. So it was really interesting to hear like your guys' first-hand stories about that. Yeah. And just to learn about how you guys like went about your daily lives. Because I know like I can't live without TV and like, you know, the internet and all that stuff. So it's just interesting to hear how you guys grew up and how you compare that to my family back home.
Very good, thank you very much.